Okay, in this video I will walk you through the process that you need to take to complete the first assignment for the digital imaging course. I'm going to be rearranging the way that things are presented since so many changes have occurred in Photoshop that have led me to have all these multiple videos. This one will work specifically with Photoshop 2019 and will also include just the basic directions on how to get started, since some folks were having difficulty finding the files to work with. So first of all, this is assignment 01.1, selection and extraction. There are multiple files attached to this document, to this file, and I need to get at least two of them. I need the kitty.jpg, which is the model with the cat, and I need one of these trees, lake, or snow, and I will use that as the background. In the previous examples, I think I always use the snow. So in order to get these files into my system, I'm using a Macintosh, but this is fairly similar to what you would do on a PC. I'm going to use the right-click button on my mouse and right-click right on top of Kitty. That way I get a contextual menu that tells me what my options are right away. I can tell it to save the link, because this is after all a link to a file. Save link as, and once I get an expanded menu, I have all kinds of stuff, all kinds of junk in my computer, but on the left side, and there's a similar option in the PC that where you can see your desktop on the left. If you are on a Mac computer, by the way, and you don't see this, make sure you click on the caret to expand and contract. I'm going to click on desktop, and just so that I know where my stuff is, I'm going to create a new folder. You can do the same thing on a PC and tell it to call it My Files and create, so that anything that I save, at least for now, will be in a My Files folder. And this one's called PS11Kitty1. It's a JPEG image, and I will click Save. I'm using the Chrome browser, and it tells me that indeed it is downloaded. I'm going to now right-click on Snow and save the link as. Same process. It should remember where I save things last. I can see that the kitty picture is inside the My Files folder, and this new file is going to be called PS11 Snow. I'll save, and it falls in. So now that it's saved, I'm going to launch my Photoshop, and there's Photoshop. I'll expand it, remove it here so you can see most of it anyway. It shows me some of the files that I worked with recently. However, I will tell it in the File menu to open, and I'll navigate my way to the desktop. Once again, on the left side, there's a shortcut for that, and I created a folder called My Files. I'll double click, and I have two files. I have the kitty and I have the snow. Multiple ways of saying there's little icons here. A PC will not generate icons for you, but you should be able to at least figure out that by the name you need the kitty first, and then you need the snow, or whichever background you opted. I double clicked on the kitty picture and it opened. While I have this open, I will open up the second file, the snow. Click on open. My tabs up here tell me that snow's open and kitty's open. I could also go to the window menu and find what is open. I'll stick to kitty since we need to make an outline of this subject and copy her to the other document. I'm going to click on these carets to make everything smaller so that I can see more of the image. I'm pressing Command 0, that would be Control 0 on a PC, so that I can see most of her. Now, the original assignment told you that you should use the Quick Selection tool, which is fourth from the top. If you don't see the Quick Selection tool on this space, you can click and hold down the left mouse button, and if you, instead of that, you saw the magic wand, that's what's going on, that it was previously selected, but you can click, hold down, select Quick Selection tool, and now it's active. So the original assignment then told me to use the quick selection tool to make selections. I'm just clicking on her and the cat, making sure to include also the eyeballs and the pupil specifically of the cat. I could have also, let me deselect this, I could have also clicked, hold down the mouse button and dragged across. And you can see that we're making a selection. Selection is the area inside of the marching ants. If you go too far, you can Command Z on a Mac, Control Z on a PC, and you have a basic selection made. Once again, I need those pupils, so I selected them. I will deselect everything again because I promised some students that I would show you that all of these clicks are unnecessary now, since after Photoshop 2018 debuted, if you go and use the select menu and tell it to select the subject, Photoshop's artificial intelligence will then make a decision for you and figure out there's this lady, there's a cat, there's background, and it will make the selection for you right away. Now, we still need to enhance the edges of the selection, because this is actually a little bit too stiff, especially around here with the hair for the cat and the fur and the coat. So I will tell it to select and mask the icon up here. Because I've used this not so long ago, I get this red background. Yours may not appear that way. What you need to check is in your properties. There is a menu on top, shows you what you're working with. This icon shows me a little preview of the file. I'll click on the caret, and perhaps you see something like an onion skin where it's just a little bit transparent. The marching ants, which is just the basic selection. I use the overlay because then I can see how good a selection was made, and actually this is pretty good. It's still a little bit weird. I would say fuzzy, but I need it fuzzier than this if I want to make sure that the cat is transparent, or at least the hairs are sort of see-through. So I still will keep it on overlay, the red. I'll click on the caret again to bring it back. Opacity is at 50%. That just means you can still see the original one, a little bit more of it, or you can make it totally red so that you can definitely see that some help is needed in these areas. I'll bring it back to about 50-something%. I will tell it in the edge detection on the properties to give it a little bit of a radius to work with, just some extra pixels, 5 pixels around. You could also select on Smart Radius. Artificial intelligence is what Adobe has been working on lately, so that would work. I will tell it to feather it a little bit so that I get a little bit fluffier stuff down here. And now, since I am in the I'm inside of this properties box, the tools on the left, quick selection tool, we have already made a selection, but we can use the Refine Edge brush tool, and it's telling me then that my current brush is 40 pixels and it's a little bit soft on the edges, which is fine. So 40 pixels will remain. I click on the caret to see this box. Hardness is at 100%, so that's actually kind of rough. I'm going to bring it down to 20s or so that when I make a selection, it just sort of fluffs out the area that I'm interested in. I'm going to click somewhere here where the fur of the cat starts and hold down the mouse button and drag. And all I'm doing is I'm adding a little bit of area where Photoshop can then say, well, this needs to be a little bit fluffier, there needs to be more air in between. I can always go back and add or subtract where that happens. And now that I've done that, I will slide down to the bottom and let me make this a little bit more visible and click OK. Well, before I do that, let me tell it to output to, that is where we want the subject that's been cut out to go. I could either do just the mask, I could do a new layer where she would be cut and placed. New layer with a layer mask, all of these things combined, or even to another document. I'm going to select new layer with a layer mask so that when I click on it and click OK, I can see the result, and I can see that the cat is now a little bit fluffier, maybe too fluffy on some parts, but we can fix that in a little bit. Her hat might be a little bit too transparent, but if I were to go into the window that has the layers, I could see all the layers below. I'll double click on color to get that out of the way, just to hide it. And now I have this background copy that I can double click on top of background copy, and I will say that this is a masked subject, just to give it a different name. In the meantime, the snow is still there, and I want to get her and the cat onto the snow. Easiest way to do this is to right click on the layer that was created, the masked subject that we just renamed. You know that this is the active layer because it's a different lighter shade of gray. If background were active, it would be lighter. This one is the one we want. I'll right click on it and tell it to make a duplicate by selecting duplicate layer. It's going to ask me, well, what do you want to call the new layer? Masked subject copy. Where? The destination, currently it's Kitty. That's the same file. I want it somewhere else, so I'll click on the caret and select PS11 Snow, the only other file that's open, and I'll click OK. Notice that it doesn't call it copy anymore because it called it copy since there was already a masked subject. Any copy of it would have to have a copy name attached. This one is just masked subject. It's going to be the only one with that name when I click OK inside of PS11. I click on the tab to open up the lady with the cat plus the background that is the snow. And since this is now an object that is masked, you can see the mask up here. We'll have lessons on mask coming up. But the original file is all here. You can see the background still appears. However, it's knocked out thanks to the mask. I'm going to switch to another tool, and that's the Move tool at the very top. Make sure that you're in the masked subject layer, because if you move anything, it's going to be whatever's in here. And since these two items are locked, I don't need to be too concerned about what's moving. The whole thing is moving. Not only the subject, but also the masked area that tells it to cut the subject out. I'll click, hold down the mouse button, and drag her to the bottom left of this image. You could put her somewhere else, but then her elbow is kind of square. I think it would fit better over in the corner. We'll put the lady in the corner. I'll press Command 0 to make this a little bit larger. Like I said, maybe some of these areas can be fixed on. Maybe some things are too transparent. Just know that you can do a little bit of fixing if you click on the actual mask on the masked subject layer. If I hover on top, it'll tell me that that's a layer mask thumbnail. I'll click on it to make sure that that's what's selected. Selected, I can tell because the corners turn white. If this were selected, then its corners would turn white, but I want the mask. And if you follow a little bit of logic, then you can tell that wherever it's white, things actually are seen and can appear on the image. It's as if you had put in masking tape on top of an image and you told it to block out the color, light, etc. on top of anywhere where it's black. So if you want to change the way that she appears, or you want to bring her more into the picture, you can add or subtract black and white inside of this mask. To do that, I'm going to select the brush tool. That's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, number 7 from the top. Sometimes they're in different places if you had told it to put it in 2 columns, which I just keep it on 1. But maybe I will put it in 2 so that I can see my color palette. Currently, if I were to brush something, it would turn white, which means that more area would be seen, which is actually good because then that means that with this 50 pixel brush that I have with almost 0 hardness, it would add a lot of fluff. So I'll make it a little bit rougher. I'll bring it down to or up to about 50%. I will then start to paint a little bit of white around the hat. Don't go too far. And if you make a mistake like I just did, press Command Z to go back. You could also go to Window and tell it to show you the history. This is right here. And I can say you use the brush tool, just go back there. You could go back to move. You could go back, well, I think up to 20 steps. I'll hide that for now. Well, actually, I'll undo what I just did and just make sure that I'm painting around the edges so that some areas are not as transparent. If the cat's pupils were transparent, this would be the opportunity to put in some white in there in the mask, and then it would show up. I'm filling in some gaps on the left, over on the right, and for the most part I would say that this image would work. For you to turn in this assignment, I need a Photoshop document. You download it to JPEGs, and it tells me still that it's a JPEG that's in the name, ps11kitty.jpg, and the same thing with the snow. Now that these two are combined into one, I can go into the File menu, tell it to File, Save As, and make sure that the format is Photoshop. You have lots of formats. You'll be using mostly Photoshop, which are PSD documents. And every now and again I'll ask for JPEG. For the most part, even if I ask for a JPEG and you give me a Photoshop document, you're doing fine. If you are a Mac user, Macs don't necessarily need the extensions, those PSDs. But depending on the time of the week, the time of the day, when I'm grading your projects, it's very helpful that they have an extension. So make sure that it says whatever you call this. I'll call this assignment 1 or something else, whatever you want to call it, that makes sense to you. I'll just say assignment 011 and save. I'll click OK to maximize compatibility. That just means that I'll be able to open it later in older versions of Photoshop. To turn it in, click on Selection and Extraction. That is the name of the assignment. Go through all of this mumbo jumbo. Hopefully by the time you're actually seeing this video, all of these other videos are gone. And browse your computer, find wherever you saved it. Currently I saved it on the desktop in the My Files, and assignment 01.1, open, it's attached, and click Submit, and you are finished. If you have any questions, please email, contact me. My information is on eCampus. And that's it.